Hey, this is Mark Henry, author of Dancing with Energy, Healing Magic, and Mysticism, here to talk to you more about the occult and the paranormal. Well, today I'm going to be talking about the faith of the hanged man. Now, before I begin, as usual, I just want to remind you all that I have an Etsy store, and that if you want a spiritual connection with a particular entity, God, goddess, angel, demon, or other spirit, feel free to check that out right now. Lucifer seems to be the most popular attunement that people are enjoying and getting a lot out of. So I'll put a link in the description as usual. Also, in case you weren't aware of it, that a few weeks ago I changed the name of this channel from Mark Henry to Tales from the Mark Side. So I know that I lost some viewers because they didn't recognize the name, and I didn't actually go ahead and say beforehand that I was going to do that. But just to let you know, that is a thing. I did that because people were having problem finding my channel who didn't ring the bell, or so you get notifications of videos. So there are a lot of Mark Henrys and things to sift through. So that's basically why I did that. All right, so let's get started on this video. So this video discusses the 12th card of the Major Arcana of the Rider-Waite deck, otherwise known as the Hanged Man. Now, before I begin talking more about this particular card, I just want to remind you all, especially if you're not familiar with the tarot, is that it would be unwise to interpret the Hanged Man or any other of the 22 of the Major Arcana in isolation, just as in itself. One of the things that you really need to do is to consider the question of the querent, the one who's asking the question. You need to consider the placement, as far as what does it mean for it to be in this particular spot in the spread. And you need to be aware of the cards surrounding it so that you know whether there's any enhanced or mitigating circumstances surrounding that. So the tarot can be kind of a complex endeavor. So I just want to kind of let you know that. But it's important to kind of get an understanding, a basic understanding of these cards, so that when you go ahead and do this, or you see it in a spread that someone is doing for you, that you kind of have an idea of what it means in general. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you the card. So this is the Hanged Man. So one of the things that you notice is what it is that is surrounding the Hanged Man's head. Of course, he is upside down, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But he has light emanating from his head. So what does this generally mean? Usually, if you look at artistic representations of holy people, saints, and enlightened individuals, they will have this as represented around their head. This generally means that these people are seeking enlightenment, are having a holy experience. They represent the religious and the spiritual, and perhaps reaching or seeking enlightenment. Okay. So next, the hanging. So the hanging represents someone who has faith, someone who is depending on their own beliefs and their own thoughts, perhaps knowledge, and they're doing that they're all in. They're putting it's less than a sacrifice, what I would say, on the cross of Jesus, but it is more reliance on, hey, I know what this is about. So it is about belief. Also, if you look at the height, okay, so in the card, they're hanging by particular height. Now the height, again, represents someone seeking a heavenly or spiritual perspective rather than the earthly. So in a way, it represents somebody who is looking towards a real, surreal world rather than just the earthly, the mundane. Okay, what else? If you look at the card, it is the right foot that is tied up and not the left. And the right generally relates to the conscious mind. It is our will. So this particular person is voluntarily allowing this to happen for a particular reason. And while we're on the subject of hanging in general, I just want to let you know that this appears in other world mythologies. For example, Odin, the Norse god, intentionally hung himself from the tree of Yggdrasil upside down in order to gain knowledge. He did that for 9 days in order to gain knowledge of the runes and the spirit world. I believe that Merlin did the same thing, but I'm not particularly sure about the details. I just remember reading that one time. So you kind of see Merlin, the Celtic wizard. So you see this in other type of world mythologies, that there's something about this particular image, and that in this particular gesture in the world mythology, in literature, that represents this sort of thing, this acquiring of wisdom, acquiring of knowledge. Now, there is also kind of a little bit of a flip side to this. And this is, we're talking about things more practical. If you see this in a spread, it can also mean, and of course you would need to, in order to interpret either way, look at the cards surrounding it in the context of the person's question. It can also mean that someone is adopting a particular mindset, a thought, and they're not really sacrificing, they are going all in, like I said, with this. And it could be a warning that if you see somebody doing this, and it could be somebody who really believes something strongly and they're taking a risk, maybe they're being impulsive. Sometimes this card warns the person to really look at your thoughts and beliefs and evaluate them from a rational perspective. That it's okay to, make calculated risks and put your faith into something. However, if these thoughts and beliefs are revolving around superstition, unproven theories, possible illusion, then you will hang yourself for real. So that could also be an interpretation of this particular card. So I would say that if you had this in a spread, if you saw kind of like cards around it that were, I don't want to say a negative, because in the tarot, what can appear negative can actually be positive. But things that are a little more conflictual, like Tower cards and other things like that, then that could possibly mean that this person is taking a real risk and can get hurt in some way. And it could be the situation where somebody believes that they're going to be a successful businessman. They invest a lot of money and get a loan and try to go ahead and do it, and they don't necessarily have the experience or wisdom in order to make it happen, and they could possibly lose their business and go into bankruptcy, that sort of thing. So there is a warning into this too, while there is The upside, which could be seeking enlightenment through faith. So going back to the first part, that in general, this card represents somebody who's looking towards the transcendent, the heavenly perspective, and they're consciously choosing to go that way, and they're seeking these things, and maybe at the same time they're examining their beliefs, and they're intentionally turning their lives upside down in order to do this. And if you look at the myth of Odin, like I mentioned before, you have Odin who is seeking new knowledge in those particular areas that I mentioned, the runes and in the spirit world. And he is intentionally, by hanging upside down, it could represent him temporarily setting aside and turning what he knows upside down, taking his cup of water and pouring it out so they'll have room for new wisdom to come in. All right. Well, that is the long and short of the card, the Hanged Man. So let me know if you have any questions, write any comments. Please subscribe. I find this to be a little bit more of a mysterious card because it is a little bit paradoxical. In any case, let me know if you have come across it. I've talked to other readers recently when I was thinking about this card, and they and me find that this Hangman card doesn't come up very often in spreads. It's usually, if we're looking at the Major Arcana, that there are things that come up more often, like the Lovers, for example. All right, so I think I've said everything I need to say. So please subscribe and like. Feel free to check out my Etsy store if you want to level up your magic and personal abilities. So I will see you in a future video. You all take care and have a good weekend. All right.